Hello and welcome to Big Questions, the show where I ask some big questions. And today's question is Black Lives Matter a terrorist organization? Now the reason I'm asking this question is because on July 6th, as you may be seeing on the screen right now, a certain individual who only refers to himself as YS, decided to put a petition on petitions.whitehouse.gov, which is the government site in which you can petition the White House to address an issue. And what you have to do is you have to get 100,000 signatures within 30 days, and then the White House will look at the issue at least. Or at least that's how it's supposed to work. But anyway, the petition is to formally recognize Black Lives Matter as a terrorist organization. Okay. And when I first saw this, I was thinking, wow, this is shocking. This is absolutely shocking. I did not expect to see this, in fact, but I suppose things like this do happen. Anyway, I also noticed that I was looking at it on the 11th, and it already had over 100,000 signatures, which means that within about 5 days of it coming out, it already fulfilled its goal in signatures, and it still has quite a few more days to go from the point that I'm viewing this. Anyway, terrorism is defined as the use of violence and intimidation in pursuit of political aims. Okay, so they first define terrorism. Okay, so for the rest of this paragraph, we will be taking that as the definition of terrorism. We will humor them, see how far this goes. This definition is the same definition used to declare the Islamic State and other groups as terrorist organizations. Fair enough. Okay. Black Lives Matter has earned this title due to his actions in Ferguson, Baltimore, and even at a Bernie Sanders rally, as well as all over the United States and Canada. Okay, so they are bringing up a few specific examples. Ferguson. What happened at Ferguson? Well, at Ferguson, a individual of color was shot, and first of all, during this trial and all this investigation, a lot of people came up with the false conclusion that at some point he had his hands up and said don't shoot, which did not happen, in fact. And also there was a cause for him being shot because earlier he did, in fact, I believe it was rob a convenience store, or at least he was involved in some sort of criminal activity. I'm not exactly sure, I don't have the facts in front of me, but overall the case in that really doesn't go into the favor of that man that got shot, but rather in the favor of the policeman. Now, I'm not saying that there wasn't any racism involved. There could have been, but the thing is, you have to presume innocence, and you can't, and racism is something that's extremely difficult to prove. So, okay, and even if there were racism involved, that still in itself would not make it unjust for him to have been shot, because he was committing a crime. Anyway, because justice is blind, you can't let people get away with crimes. Anyway, so what happened in the aftermath is that a lot of people marched through Ferguson, and one big problem with this was that a lot of these people weren't locals. That wasn't a big problem in it, but it's just something worth noting is that a lot of them were bussed in from around the country, so it's not like the local population got really, really mad about this. It's a lot of people from all over the country that do a lot of these rallies and stuff like that. They all got shipped in to Ferguson, and they started marching through the streets, and then they got violent. I saw a security footage where they were breaking the windows of a store, and they just poured in, and they just began looting all over the place. And this happened, I believe, at a few different locations inside Ferguson. And the problem is that, first of all, this is a crime. This is, I'm not entirely sure as to the specific legal definition, but this is a number of crimes that they were committing. Breaking, entering, robbery, etc. Stuff like that. All of which is illegal. That is why we call them crimes. And personally, I would like to see them prosecuted for it, if they haven't already been. Hopefully they have already been prosecuted for committing a crime that was caught on camera, and some of these people were actually easily identifiable. But if they haven't, I hope they are. Not because of them being for certain causes, no, not because of that. It's because crime needs to be dealt with, regardless of who commits it. Anyway, so something similar happened at Baltimore. In Baltimore, protesters just filled the streets, and they started destroying things in stores, and marching all over the place, messing up the town. And the police weren't really allowed to do anything about it. And as far as I know, there wasn't too much actual interpersonal violence occurring there, but there was a lot of property damage. Now, people might say, oh, it's just property. But the thing is, a lot of these people, that's their livelihood. That's maybe something that they've invested years into, and now it's gone. It's gone, it's all gone. Somebody just came in, busted it all up, they're out. Now you don't have any money, and you have a bunch more people on welfare, and that just taxes the economy in general. You don't want to ruin people's livelihoods unless they're doing something bad, but I don't think owning a store is anything really bad. Anyway, and even at a Bernie Sanders rally, I think they are referring to the point where Black Lives Matter activists practically forced Bernie Sanders off a podium in one of his own rallies, and then they started whining. Yes, I am using the word whining. That is basically what they did. And, you know, the people in the audience, they weren't so pleased with that. They're thinking, oh, I came here to see Bernie Sanders. I was feeling the burn. Well, I'm certainly not feeling the burn right now. I'm pretty upset. Of course, I personally am not feeling the burn, but I'm pretty sure they were, and I'm pretty sure they came to see Bernie Sanders, and somebody just forcing Bernie Sanders off a stage was really improper and rather impolite. You know, you gotta be polite to people. That's why I don't use 4chan, because I'm polite to people. Anyway, it's a high-class society. As well as over the United States and Canada. I suppose they're referring to probably more minor events of violence. I'm not entirely sure exactly. There was a parade. I think it was a pride parade of some sort, probably gay pride. And I only heard pride parade, so I don't mean to make any assumptions. But Black Lives Matter activists basically they stopped everything on the parade until they were getting a position of respect in it, which I think it's not nice. They want to have a parade, let them have their own parade. If you want to have your issue addressed, why don't you get your own parade? That's just what I'm saying. But anyway, That's that. And another thing to note is that the shooting in Dallas that occurred recently, this isn't on here, but apparently the individual that did this was not a Black Lives Matter activist, just so that we get anything out of the way. It is not a Black Lives Matter activist. This person probably went to a lot greater extent in the violence that he was willing to commit. It was an event of domestic terror. That's definitely terrorism there. He went, for those of you who might not know, in Dallas, Texas, during a march where there were a lot of protesters. I'm pretty sure a lot of them were from Black Lives Matter, but there was police, of course, at the event, making sure that nobody was getting hurt, making sure that there was no looting going on, and making sure that nobody was going to just be mean to the protesters, just protecting them and everything, even though the protesters were actually protesting against the police. But I guess it's the police's job to protect everyone, even if people don't really like the police. Anyway, this guy came out and he started shooting policemen, and people were running everywhere. They were scared. As far as I know, there weren't really many people trampled, but he also took some hostages, which was also a problem. And in the end, after a series of events, he was holed up in some building or somewhere, and the police couldn't get to him because he was really trigger happy on them. You know, you don't want to approach somebody who's going to shoot you the moment he sees you. And since his goal was actually to kill police, I don't think it would have been very easy for the police to negotiate with him anyway. But something happened. The police decided to send in a robot with a remote detonating bomb. It's a type of robot usually used to defuse bombs, but they decided to send in a robot with a remote detonating bomb. And of course this opened a whole new can of worms. It really opened a new issue, as in, should police be using such methods or weapons in the first place? Well, let's be honest. This guy was an armed terrorist, and he was still armed, and he was hostile. Alright? This means that you can't negotiate with him because he wants to kill you. It's not like they could just get someone in there, and he's not going to give himself up. And I'm not saying that you just can't negotiate with him. I'm saying that he made it pretty clear that he wasn't willing to give himself up to the police. He made it pretty clear. And so the question is, how do we get rid of him? And of course the police themselves, it is known that the police don't take kindly to being killed in the streets. They don't take kindly at all. So I'm not really surprised that they used such a method to dispose of him. And I wouldn't really say that it is improper, in the sense that in an instance where there was a hostage situation and a guy killed police and he's holed up and he's armed and he's ready to shoot, a lot of times they would use snipers to take him out, if that were possible. It's just something that you do. If you're a policeman and somebody reaches for a gun, you shoot. It's just a thing you have to do. It's a risky job, and it involves violence, and I suppose it happens. Anyway, back on track. It is time for the Pentagon. Wow, the Pentagon, that's pretty extreme. To be consistent in its actions. And just as they rightfully declared the Islamic State a terror group, they must declare Black Lives Matter a terror group on the grounds of principle, integrity, morality, and safety. Okay, let's address this. Okay, so it is, yes, the Pentagon does do this. The Pentagon is a big part in identifying terror groups and telling people who's a terrorist and so on. And they had declared the Islamic State a terror group. Yeah, that's true. And now they must declare the Black Lives Matter a terror group. That is the argument. On the grounds of principle, integrity, morality, and safety. Now, personally, I'm not entirely sure if Black Lives Matter can be specifically classed as a terror group. It seems more of a mob violence idea, what happened in Ferguson and Baltimore. It's a lot of people who are angry. Now, I'm not justifying their actions. They should all be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But a lot of people get angry, and they're all, oh, I see how it is. Screw the man. I'm gonna stick it to the man. And how am I gonna stick it to the man? By ruining other people's livelihoods. That's how I'm gonna stick it to the man. I don't really think that's terrorist activity, really, as much as it's just a large number of people being extremely stupid. And I think the government should take more actions to perhaps deal with that. And there are certainly, I wouldn't be surprised if there were terrorist, if there were a subgroup of terrorists within Black Lives Matter, but I don't believe that in general it is a terrorist organization. I don't think they explicitly, as an organization, want to have violence. But that might change, and new evidence might come up, and perhaps you can change my mind. And so on that note, number 1, do comment. I love seeing comments, and maybe you have a perspective to this that I don't have. Maybe you have some information that I don't have. Maybe you can just fact check me if I said something that's not entirely accurate. That's okay. I'd rather be right than wrong. So write me so I'm not wrong. Additionally, you can comment, just ask any question, really. I'll answer it. And like if you like the video, dislike if you think the video is a piece of poop. And if you do dislike, please leave a comment stating exactly why you disliked, so that perhaps in the future I can make a better video. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And I suppose that's it. Anamultus over and out.